Hey guys, my name is John Campea. I am the director of Movie Trailers, A Love Story, a documentary about, well, you guessed it, movie trailers. Now, when we first released Movie Trailers, A Love Story back at the end of 2020, we were absolutely overwhelmed by the response we got. How many of you guys went out and rented and bought it? We were also given the honor by NBC Universal's Portland International Film Festival, and we were nominated for Best Documentary Feature there. It was incredible. However, it's been about 6 months since we released the film, and it's a little bit of out of sight, out of mind. So I wanted to plug it and put it back on everybody's radar a little bit here. So I wanted to share with you guys 3 out of the 12 chapters of the movie. The movie is broken into 12 different chapters, and I thought I'd give you guys a really good sample size of it, about 20 minutes of it. So here's a little sample size of my movie, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. Hope you enjoy.
As we look at movie trailers and our sometimes complicated relationship with them, it would probably be helpful if we quickly took a couple of minutes to look at the history of the movie trailer and how we got here. To do so, we actually have to go back over 100 years to 1913.
Actually, movie trailers began with a kid who was born in 1890 Sweden named Niles Granlund, who immigrated to the United States when he was 4 years old. And when he was 23, he was hired by Marcus Loew of the famous Loew's theater chain. And at that time, in movie theaters, they also had live shows in addition to showing films. And Granlund was hired actually to do publicity on one of Loew's shows called Hanky Panky. He did such a great job that Marcus Loew hired him to do publicity for the entire chain. One of these live shows was called Pleasure Seekers. And Granlund had this idea. What if we shot rehearsal footage, we use that footage, and we create a clip, a promotional clip, and we could put it in our movie theaters to play with movies. They played that clip at the end of the film. In other words, that promo piece trailed the movie itself. Hence, to this day, we still think of them as movie trailers.
National Screen Service. Chances are you've probably never heard of it, but it's not an exaggeration to say that if you were alive and watching trailers from 1920 to 1960, it's likely that most of them came from the National Screen Service. For decades, they held a practical monopoly on the film trailer industry.
Back in the dawn of the film industry a century ago, there really was no coordinated infrastructure for the marketing and promotion of the studio's films. And in 1919, a man named Herman Robbins created the National Screen Service. His model was actually pretty simple. He was taking stills from the studios, from upcoming movies that they were going to be releasing, and cutting them together and putting in wipes and creating trailers, then taking those trailers and actually selling them to the theaters as a means to promote their upcoming releases. And the crazy part is, the studios were totally on board with this. They were actually fine with it because it was promoting their films. And NSS, the National Screen Service, essentially carried this on almost as a monopoly until the 60s. Now, today, all of that's been flipped around and the studios are completely, totally in charge of their marketing. They're totally in charge of their trailers. But for a long time, they outsourced this to the National Screen Service. Now, this monopoly that National Screen Service had really carried over for decades until about the 1960s when the auteur filmmakers started to kind of come into power and they started to actually cut their own trailers. And so you had people like Stanley Kubrick making a trailer for Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and
Love the Bomb.
You would have things that really National Screen Service couldn't do. A great example of which is the Alfred Hitchcock trailer for Psycho.
When it comes to the groundbreaking, trailblazing movie trailers that are also among the very best trailers of all time, the number one trailer has to be Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. I'm sure a lot of people are going to say this, but it's true. First of all, the trailer for Psycho was 6 minutes long. Second of all, you have the director of Psycho, the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock, giving you a tour of all the sets in Psycho. He takes you through the Bates Motel. He takes you through the front office. He takes you through the room. He takes you into the bathroom. He's giving you a tour of the set, which is basically on the Universal Studios lot.
And the imprint of her figure on the bed where she used to lay. I think some of her clothes are still in this wardrobe.
That 6-minute trailer where Alfred Hitchcock walks you through the entire set of Psycho with the sort of like playful music behind it.
Let's go inside.
Which gives you no indication of what you are in for. It's brilliant.
Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho wasn't the first trailer to have this format of a hosted trailer. The first trailer to do that was also the very first trailer to have spoken sound in Al Jolson's The Jazz Singer.
With the introduction of sound, you got something called the Master of Ceremonies trailer, which would involve an actor or a spokesperson being filmed in front of a curtain or on a stage and basically pitching to the audience the film that they were about to see, or the film they would come back to the cinema to see.
But don't forget, at this theater, Al Jolson in The Jazz Singer. Good night.
Most famously with John Miljan in the trailer for Al Jolson's The Jazz Singer, where he comes out of a curtain and gives this kind of long, slightly rambling speech to the audience explaining why they should come back and see The Jazz Singer at that theatre.
I am privileged to say a few words to you in this most modern and novel manner. Privileged because it's the first living Vitaphone announcement ever made announcing the coming of one of the year's outstanding pictures. What is the picture? Oh, well, of course, you've guessed that I'm referring to Warner Brothers' supreme triumph, Al Jolson in The Jazz Singer.
Warner Brothers, who introduced sound in this way, it made many of these kind of talking trailers, Master of Ceremony trailers, but they also became very popular through the 1930s and kind of would return in the 1950s when directors such as Cecil B. DeMille, Alfred Hitchcock, William Castle and Otto Preminger enjoyed kind of hosting their own trailers.
Cleopatra is a magic name, a symbol of romance and love, of power and passion and intrigue.
So when you get a new technology coming along, trailers are very eager to kind of show off that new technology. It was true when The Jazz Singer debuted and trailers were made for that, which kind of showed off sound technology. It was the same when widescreen was introduced. There are great trailers in 3D, both in the 1950s and in the 1980s. All of these operate on the principle that the trailer can give you a sense of what the new technology can do. And because of that, you can be lured back into the cinema to kind of see a more expansive version of that.
While names like Kubrick and Hitchcock were synonymous with the movies, you can't have a conversation about movie trailers without at least mentioning the one voice that came to define them for a generation. Don LaFontaine, the In a World guy, became synonymous with movie trailers for decades. With over 5,000 trailers to his credit, you'd be hard-pressed to think of many big trailers from the 70s, 80s, or 90s that didn't have his incredible booming voice.
In a world without gas. In a world that's powered by violence. On the streets where the violent have power. Once, he was programmed to destroy the future.
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
In a world where professional sports had sunk to a new low. From the sewers of Gotham, a new villain emerges. The story of a warrior. The woman he loved. A daring outlaw.
For the longest time, we had the voice that said, "In a world," and it became overused. And it was such a cliche. It had existed for so long that finally somebody broke free of it and those trailers became successful. So everybody just did that.
Again, you get a lot of very big voiceover work in that time. It's largely about the cliche of the big booming voice, kind of saying, coming soon, in a world. There's a period across the 80s and 90s where that's just the form of trailer. You expect all trailers to kind of look like that and to sound like that.
Warner Brothers presents Arnold Schwarzenegger, Eraser.
And it becomes so well known that it becomes a cliche. And like many cliches of the time, that means that trailers inevitably stop doing it at some point because they're aware that it's something they can be kind of ridiculed for.
But I do think they'll respond to it again in the future. It'll just be a new trend then.
By 1998, the relationship between movie trailers and the audience was already strong, but they were always just the proverbial wingman. One trailer changed all that and became the centerpiece of the entertainment world. For the first time, people were going to movies and buying tickets just to see one trailer.
Phantom Menace was the first time trailers became the main attraction.
Star Wars, the Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, might be one of my all-time favorite trailers. It really just sort of spurred the imagination, and it also gave you some moments too. I mean, Anakin Skywalker meeting Obi-Wan Kenobi for the first time.
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Whatever you think of Episode 1, perhaps a subject for another documentary, but that trailer for Episode 1, I think no one would deny that is one of the all-time great movie trailers.
It's hard to not talk about the ultimate trailer when you're talking about trailers, and that's The Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1. And the reason why this was so impactful, Star Wars hadn't had a movie since Return of the Jedi. So this is 16 years or something along those lines where people are waiting for a Star Wars movie. And there was no, I'm just going to watch the trailer on YouTube. It was, no, how are you going to find it? You got to go buy a ticket to meet Joe Black.
As far as I'm concerned, Star Wars Episode 1 trailer, that debut, was as important as the movie.
The new Star Wars movie is finally here, and E.T. has the long-awaited trailer in its entirety.
So it was so important. Many of us, myself included, went to see Meet Joe Black just to see that trailer.
I remember it was 1998, I believe. I remember going to Universal City Walk with two buddies to go see a movie we had no intention of ever seeing, which was Meet Joe Black. No disrespect to anybody involved in the film.
Your dad. Yes?
I still haven't seen it. And we went and paid for it. We saw the trailer. We couldn't stop talking about it. We held on to our tickets. We came back outside for an hour and a half or whatever it was and went and sat through the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie and watched it again.
When the Phantom Menace trailer came out, it was a cultural event. I was in film school at the time and somebody got a copy of it. So we actually had a copy of the trailer that we were watching on somebody's computer just over and over. And so I have very vivid memories of very specific frames of that trailer.
Some very ambitious people took a cam version of that Episode 1 trailer, uploaded it onto the internet. And I remember finding the site through theforce.net. I remember it took 6 hours to download.
Now you have to remember, at the time, Americans, most of their modems ran at 56K. So if you were going to try and download a minute-long cat video from the internet, it would take 4 hours. Not only were people going to the movies and paying to see a trailer and leaving, but then they were also going home and they were tying up their phone lines 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours just to download a trailer.
What ended up happening is Apple actually approached Lucasfilm after that happened and said, we think we can help you with this. We think we can fix this for you. So they added to iTunes a way to download trailers. They actually added a movie trailer section for Apple. After the Star Wars Episode 1 trailer debuts on Apple became a huge deal.
And it changed it because people started doing that. People started running big trailers before their movies because they figured, okay, you know what? Meet Joe Black made a lot of money because of that particular movie. So Star Wars took that marketing of putting the trailers be before other movies that would boost business and get people into the theaters. And more theaters obviously wanted to show the Star Wars trailer.
No relationship is perfect. Everyone has its bumps and issues along the way that can make the relationship, let's say, complicated sometimes.
You just said that you want me to help you do the dishes.
I want you to want to do the dishes.
Why would I want to do dishes?
The relationship between trailers and the audience is no different.
The problem I see in some trailers is when they give too much away.
The worst thing a trailer could do is give away too much.
The number one thing that we get thrown in our face is like, why do you do that? The first time someone finds out that we make trailers, they're like, why do you put out the whole story in there? Why do you put everything? It's a thing we deal with.
Anybody that complains that trailers give too much away has never seen an old trailer. Because back before trailers were really sophisticated and they were done by marketing departments and everybody was very concerned about them, they were just sort of like cut together and released. It didn't seem like there's a lot of care taken in old trailers, and they definitely give away the whole movie without caring at all.
This is a discussion that's gone back over 100 years. There's trade press reports in 1917 that there are too many trailers in cinemas and that they're giving too much away. So this isn't really a new debate. I always talk about the fact that if you watch the trailer for Casablanca, it reveals the ending of the film. But that didn't stop anyone going to see Casablanca or it becoming this cult classic and one of these kind of classics of the Hollywood cinema.
I've seen all the Rocky movie trailers for Rocky 1 through 5. They show you the entire movie there, except, the first Rocky movie, they show you parts of the fight. And the other Rocky movies show you like literally every single thing that happens in there.
They were only shown in theaters. Old trailers didn't go online. They didn't have any other life besides a movie theater. And they're kind of counting on you just sitting in a theater, seeing a movie once, and therefore seeing the trailer only once.
Don't push it, I'll give you a war you won't believe.
Trailers now exist in this multimedia world where clips, trailers, teasers all compete for people's attention. I think because of that, the trailer is now part of a very different media landscape. And because of that, it's often seen as revealing too much.
John! What have they done to my son?
Survival's what you taught me.
When it comes to a trailer that gives away way too much, there's really only one that stands out, and I will never forget it. That is the trailer for Castaway. So here's Tom Hanks, and he gets stuck on a deserted island for 4 years, okay? What makes Castaway the worst trailer of all time is that it shows Tom Hanks getting off the island. What were they thinking?
You were lost for 4 years. We had a funeral, coffin. What was in it?
What were they thinking? You're going to show Tom Hanks getting off the island and back with Helen Hunt, who plays his love interest, and his hair is short and he shaves the beard and he looked like he did back when he made Bachelor Party. Like, that was the stupidest move.
A lot of it comes from audience testing. So audiences say that they don't want things given away, but when trailers are tested, especially head to head, one of the most common pieces of feedback is more story and more context for what's happening. So in response to that, the studios try to put more things in there to make things clear and to get people excited. And maybe sometimes they put a little too much, they cross the line. But it is a balancing act because I think audiences want to know what they're in for, but then they don't want to know everything.
I was really excited to see Jake Gyllenhaal in Southpaw, that boxing movie. Eminem did the score for the movie. I heard about that. I was excited. And then I saw the trailer, and they showed like the biggest plot points of the film in the trailer. It's like, okay, he wins the title, he loses the title, his wife dies. He has to fight for his kids.
Legal custody of the child shall remain with family services until the father can demonstrate the abilities of a responsible parent.
Oh, look, there he is in the ring at the end of the movie, in the middle of the trailer. I'm like, what are we doing here?
So one of the most outrageous examples of a trailer just sort of giving away the movie is the 1998 F. Gary Gray movie, The Negotiator, with Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. And in the movie, Samuel Jackson is a hostage negotiator who basically goes into a building and takes a bunch of hostages. And Kevin Spacey is the negotiator brought in to talk him out. And by the time you get to the end of the trailer, they have revealed that both characters have teamed up with Kevin Spacey getting on the walkie-talkie and saying, now you have to deal with both of us.
Now you're going to have to deal with both of us.
They basically give away the main twist of the movie in the trailer.
A really great example of a terrible trailer is Batman v Superman.
The title of this movie is Batman versus Superman. And the whole buildup is that Batman and Superman are going to fight each other. And then in one of the trailers, they showed us a shot where they're squaring up next to each other to fight something else.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
And then they show us Doomsday. They show us the big baddie. So they kind of ruined the whole ending.
I think it still holds enough back. I mean, yeah, showing Doomsday was kind of overkill. But like, as far as a lot of team up things, like, it's something people expected to happen anyway. So showing it in the trailer isn't really too bad because you know it's going to happen.
I mean, we kind of knew that was coming. It was like comic book fans, but still, it was like, really, do we have to see that?
It told us the whole movie. It told us, well, first of all, I guess we had to know that Batman and Superman were in it, but it tells us that Lex Luthor introduces them, you know, as Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. It tells us that they fight Doomsday. It tells us that Wonder Woman is in the movie. It tells us that they're all in the movie together. It doesn't really leave anything to us except to figure out little bits of plot.
We talk a lot about the difference between plot and story. Like, what's the big idea versus what's detail that I don't need to know? If you walk away at the end of the trailer and you could give me the elevator pitch, that's a success. If you start going into details of what happened, and then this character did this, or that, then that happened there, then that's not a great trailer.
The first Avengers. I saw Hulk catch Iron Man. And I had seen that in the trailer. And then I'm like, well, that hasn't happened yet. And then he's flying up in the sky at the end, and he starts falling. Well, this is when Hulk's going to catch him. And Hulk catches him. And it's like, why did you show me that? Because those are the movies, like there are certain moments that when studios do that, it's like, what's the decision to show that?
It's always a dance. And, you know, we try to do our part to not give away the pieces, our favorite pieces, or the ones that are more, there's more left unsaid. But, you know, at that same point, not every audience is going to shell out money to go see a movie that they don't know what it's about or what it really is. And so we have to kind of ride that line between reality and fantasy of what we're selling and what the movie is.